Over the last 15 years, enthusiasts looking for a street-legal rally car have flocked to the Subaru WRX STI. When this car first came out back in 2004, it was highly coveted for its turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, standard 6-speed manual, and of course Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Now, as this segment continued to grow in popularity, and with hot newcomers like Honda with the Civic Type R behind me, Subaru lost some of that magic because they simply didn't make enough performance upgrades under the hood, which is why I'm standing by this special version of the STI. This is the 2019 Subaru STI S209. It marks the first time that we're getting an S-Line performance version of the STI built exclusively by Subaru's performance division known as Subaru Technica International. So with upgrades to the engine, the suspension, the wheels and tires, was it worth that long 15-year wait for a special version of the STI? That's what we're here to find out. Now, before we get started on the review, I want to first give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Vincero Watches. Now, I have been working with Vincero for about 3 years now, and every time they send me a new watch, it's almost like Christmas for me because every one of their watches is just really elegant, it's really classy, and I always get a lot of compliments. Now, the watch they sent me this time is a new addition to their lineup. This is called the Altitude. It's basically the same kind of watch face that you get on the rest of their watches, but this one here has a blue finish on the inside. It's made of a surgical grade stainless steel. The face is made of a crystallized glass, so it's scratch resistant and water resistant, and the band that this one came with is a brown top grain natural leather, which really just looks phenomenal. I get constant compliments whenever I'm wearing one of their watches. Now, of course, anytime Vincero comes out with a new addition to their collection, they tend to sell out very quickly. So if you guys are looking to purchase one of these watches, I suggest you act very quickly and click on the link in the description below. Use the code word Redline for a special discount. So one of the biggest upgrades that Subaru could have possibly made to the S209 is going to be found underneath the hood, because remember, this car has been using the same EJ25 Boxer Flat 4 over the last 15 years, and they finally have given it a huge upgrade in performance. This now pushes out 341 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. That's about 31 more horsepower than what you're going to get from a standard STI. Now, you get more power because Subaru has reworked the internals. They've upgraded the ECU, and they've also installed a larger turbo from HKS that now pushes out nearly 19 PSI of boost. That's about 3 PSI more than what you get in the standard STI. Now, the other special feature about this car is it's giving you a throwback to the 2007 STI because it includes a water injection spray into the intercooler, which Subaru says gives you a quick little burst of acceleration when you guys are at the track. Basically, you pull the paddle and it sprays water from here into the intercooler to cool down the intercooler temperatures. Now, this engine only goes out through a 6-speed manual transmission, which Subaru says is unchanged from the base STI. The ratios are exactly the same. And then, of course, you get the company's symmetrical all-wheel drive system as standard. You also get a limited slip front and rear diff, and you can also adjust the center diff from a manual to an automatic setting, depending on how aggressive you want the power delivery to go. Now, Subaru says in standard mode, it's going to give you about a 41 to 59 torque split front to rear. So it's going to give you more of a rear bias torque split. And it's what gives the STI kind of its signature character, in addition to this motor, which is still going to give you a lot of turbo lag below 4,000 RPM, but some of you may actually like that. Now, because this is all-wheel drive, it is a relatively heavier car than something like a new Civic Type R. It weighs around 3,500 pounds. There are some carbon fiber bits on this particular one to help lighten up the car. And fuel economy, it did drop a little bit from the regular one. It's rated at 15 in the city, 21 on the highway. Ouch, that is pretty poor MPG. I actually just tested a Dodge Charger Hellcat wide body, and that's rated at 13 city, 22 highway. So Subaru definitely has to work on the MPG, but honestly, MPG is not your biggest concern when you drive a car like this. Now, checking out the styling of the S209, you can see Subaru has made some pretty obvious changes to make this car look a lot more special and a lot more aggressive versus your run-of-the-mill STIs. You can see the company's swiveling LED headlights are going to be standard. It's an LED low and high beam, just an incandescent turn signal. And then, as you can see here, the STI models did lose the fog lights, which you get on the WRX models. This has a unique front fascia in general. It's got bigger air intakes, of course, to help cool the engine. You've got that S209 badge. And then Subaru says the front lip here does have some carbon fiber, although this kind of just looks more like plastic to me, but I'll take their word for it. It's probably just tucked underneath the front fascia. Now, Subaru in general says the S209 is about 1.7 inches wider, and you can really tell from the flared out fenders to the lower stance, this is one mean looking STI, and you'll instantly be able to tell a difference between this and your standard version of the STI. Now, of course, the hood scoop here is functional. That's going to feed air into the intercooler. And then when you look at the rest of the side profile, the one thing I love about the S209 is the fact that it just has really beautiful lines. I mean, the flared out fenders, these vortex generators here at the front, that's all functional. Even this vent over here, Subaru says, is a functional vent. It helps to allow hot air to escape from the engine to help cool it off when you guys are going to the track. Now, of course, being a track-focused model of the STI, it's got its own unique set of wheels and tires and brakes. These are a 19 by 9 inch wheel wrapped in two 65/35 Dunlop series tires, which are developed specifically for this car. Subaru says you should be able to get 1G of lateral grip on the skid pad, so that's a nice improvement over the standard one. You also get upgraded brakes, which are cross-drilled. You also have the 6-piston Brembo brakes that you get from the regular STI, but they've also stuffed some high-friction track pads, which is going to be necessary if you guys are going to be planning to take this vehicle out to the track. Now, of course, at the roof here, it's got a carbon fiber roof, which does help lower the center of gravity and make this vehicle a little bit more stiffer. That's actually the same carbon fiber roof that you had on the Subaru STI Type RA, which was available last year, but this is a much more aggressive beast versus what you got on the Type RA. Now, this vehicle's dimensions haven't changed. At 181 inches long, this is a little bit longer, or a little bit shorter than most of the competition. Its wheelbase also is only 104.3 inches long, so it's really a smaller car, which is good because I think Subaru got the proportions right. Even at 72.5 inches wide, this is still about an inch narrower versus the Civic Type R, which sometimes I think is a little bit too wide for the segment. Now, of course, coming to the rear of the vehicle, Subaru replaced that obnoxious wing with an even more obnoxious wing. This wing here is made of carbon fiber, and it also adds about 45 pounds of downforce when you guys are going about 70 miles an hour. It looks fantastic in the crystal white color. You guys can also get this in World Rally Blue. It'll change the gold wheels on this one to a satin gray finish wheel. And then of course you have the signature STI and S209 badge. And then of course underneath here, there is this rather silly looking red line that accents the lower part of the bumper. It's literally just a sticker. And I think that Subaru probably could have just done without this little red accent. The polished quad exhaust tips are unique to the S209, which Subaru says reduces the back pressure by about 17%. I'll let you guys hear what that Boxer 4 sounds like. And of course, Subaru says it has its own unique rumble compared to the standard one. It definitely has a meaner tone. I just don't think it's quite loud enough. I would like to see Subaru go a little bit more hardcore with the noise of this vehicle, considering how good the exhaust system actually looks. Now, coming to the trunk, which isn't going to open for me. Yes, I need the key.
And have your hand on the thing and open it and keep going, having it on.
Now, coming to the trunk.
Oh. You already said coming to the trunk.
The capacity hasn't actually changed from the standard STI. You're looking at around 11.9 cubic feet of space, which is decent. There is a structural enhancement here. You can see there's a red bar that is actually protecting an upgrade to the suspension, which stiffens the chassis. That little bar that you see behind the red bar is adjustable, and it allows the body to flex when you guys are going out on the track. It does eliminate the fold down rear seat, so you can't actually fold the rear seats down. And for those of you who want a hatch, Subaru still doesn't offer a hatch version on this car. Hopefully we'll see one for the next generation of this car, which we're expecting in 2021. So the exterior of the S209 definitely has the looks to differentiate it from a regular STI, but let's hop into the interior and see some of the changes that Subaru has made for this special model. The first thing I'm going to show you guys, the key fob. Here is the current Subaru key fob, the push button start with intelligent access that is standard on every S209, so at least Subaru gives that to you as standard. As you approach the door handle of the vehicle, you can see there is a little ridge portion over here. If you just touch your finger there, that will lock the doors for you. The mirrors don't electrically fold or anything like that. To unlock it, just touch the back of the door handle and that will unlock the door for you. Now, looking at the interior of the S209, you can see there are quite a few subtle changes that I'm noticing. First of all, I hope you like this interior color combination because this is the only combination you can get. It's kind of like a leather and suede Alcantara with this really nice white contrast with some red stitching as well, or some white stitching. It looks really good, especially in the crystal white pearl exterior color. It's got some reddish accents here on the dashboard, a unique STI badge on the steering wheel, S209 badging on the carpeted floor mats, and the wheel itself is an all Alcantara design. The S209 is the only one to give you that. I'm surprised to see a power driver's seat. It's kind of like an 8-way power driver's seat. There's no lumbar, but these are essentially the same Recaro seats you can get on the regular STI, just with S209 badging embroidered on the actual headrest. You can see the headrest also adjust to make them a little bit more comfortable, to get closer to the back of your head and whatnot. But overall, the interior, very familiar, very subtle changes compared to a regular STI. Now, getting into the vehicle, it doesn't really feel that much lower than a regular STI. You definitely notice how low to the ground this vehicle is, and it definitely gives you a feeling of specialness, which is really good. Now, shutting the door, the door itself sounds relatively solid. I want to say maybe the Type R's door and the Golf R's door sounds a little bit more solid, but nevertheless, once you get inside the vehicle, you can see engine start stop buttons over here. It's red because this is an STI model. There's some STI badging as well. To start it up, it only comes with a manual, so you got to put the clutch in, push this button here to fire up the engine. And of course, it has that typical Subaru rumble, which let me let you guys hear that again. The S209 has a unique exhaust, as I said before, and I have to say, it sounds good, but it isn't loud enough. We'll go into the test drive later and we'll see if we can confirm that. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, you can see, aside from the red accents, the badging, it looks pretty much identical to a regular STI. There is some leather here over the over the hood here that covers up this eyebrow display. The leather is genuine with real stitching. I do like that. This material here is soft touch. It's a soft touch injection molded plastic. The wheel itself here, you can see, is a tilt and telescoping design. It's pretty nice. It has really great bolstering extensions and it feels good in your hands like the Alcantara, but this is going to look like crap after a few years. The door panels here you can see are soft touch with more of that injection molded plastic. There's some suede with some genuine stitching here for the armrest, a nice grab handle here. The window is one touch automatic for only the front. I wish Subaru had just made it for the back windows as well, considering the price of this vehicle. A couple of more switches over here to turn off your traction control, open the trunk, the dimmer switch. The steering wheel, you can see there are buttons here to control what you see in that display, which there isn't really too much in terms of settings there. These paddle shifters here may confuse you, but that's for the intercooler water injection spray. That's a nod to a 2007 WRX STI. We haven't seen that in a while. This essentially sprays water, as I said, into the intercooler to cool down the air temperatures to give you a slight boost of power whenever you guys are out on the track. Over here at the center stack, you can see there's that traditional eyebrow display where you can adjust what you want it to see there. There's your boost gauge. It shows your peak boost pressure, the percentage of acceleration you're giving it. You can go into your settings, a clock, your trip computer, your all-wheel drive mode to see how much power is going to which wheel, for example. This is all very nice. The rest of the dash layout hasn't changed. This is the 7-inch Subaru Starlink infotainment system. It does thankfully include Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. That's very much expected in this segment of vehicle, so it's good that Subaru is including that. You can see I've got the latest version. This is iOS 13 with its new homepage. You can pull up the Waze over here. It's important that this car has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard because for some reason Subaru doesn't offer embedded TomTom navigation in this car. Really surprised to not see it here. This trim level is more based on the regular STI and not the STI Limited, which is why it also doesn't have a sunroof. Sunroofs just add weight, and of course this vehicle has a carbon fiber roof, which is supposed to lower the center of gravity, so I can at least understand that. Would like to see embedded navigation. Also, if you're looking for blind spot monitoring or Subaru's EyeSight safety tech, it's not available on this car or the STI. You have to step down to a regular WRX to get that. The only piece of tech in here, driver assistance tech, is when you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there is a backup camera. It's very rudimentary, just a one view lane, or it's got distance markers, but no trajectory, no parking sensors either. You can see the Subaru Starlink head unit here. I've shown you this before. It's relatively works well. Definitely not the best in the business. They've got a very new system in the Outback and Legacy with that big 11.6-inch display. This is definitely looking a little bit small, so expect the next generation WRX, hopefully by 2021, to finally upgrade on that. These icons here you can see are also rearrangeable. Dual zone climate control. is included on the S209, which is nice. You can see very traditional big knobs here, volume knob, tuning knob, touch sensitive buttons over there. Good storage area over here. My tester, you can see, is a prototype because it is 000 out of 000 built. There are going to be 209 of these built, remember. This 6-speed here is the typical Subaru 6-speed. It's got very short, notchy throws. It doesn't enjoy being rushed the way a Civic Type R shifter might be, but reverse is over here. You have to pull up on this ring to go that way to reverse. It's basically what I expect. It takes a little bit of getting used to. The clutch is definitely heavier than what I'm used to in some of the competition, and it engages right at the end of the travel, which makes this vehicle a little bit more of a challenge to drive if you guys aren't too good at driving stick shift. The drive mode selector is over here. You can see, push this in, it goes to an intelligent, that's like your comfort mode. Twist it over to the left, it goes into a sport mode. This is like the normal mode. Twist it over to the right, it goes to sport sharp. This is the most aggressive setting. And then of course over here, this is the driver adjustable center diff controller. There's basically an automatic and a manual mode. This will vary the power or the torque split of the all-wheel drive system. On its own, when you leave it in automatic, this car defaults to a 41-59 power distribution, so almost 60% going to the rear. You can play with this manually if you'd like when you guys are track driving this car. I don't particularly notice a difference on the street. Most of the times I just left it right here in automatic. This will, you know, appropriate the power to the correct wheels most of the time. Now you can see here, traditional pull handbrake, which is always nice. You've got 2 cup holders over here with this nice little cover to cover it up. You got 2 level heated seats, so at least this has heated seats. That's something you don't even get on a Civic Type R. This armrest here, I wish it was adjustable for height because it is too low for me. I want it to be a little bit higher. It is also nicely padded, covered in suede. There is 2 USB ports in there, power outlet, an aux port. It's a little bit of storage on the smaller side. The seats also are comfortable, although I wish they were more aggressively bolstered for this particular model. I found myself sliding around in it a little bit during aggressive driving, but they are comfortable. I love the material. I love the white accents here. And then you can see here the glove compartment. It's damped, not lined with felt, but it's the, you know, typical size. So this cabin definitely does not look like a $65,000 car. There's definitely features in this vehicle that I wish it had, like an auto-dimming rearview mirror and HomeLink, but not even LED lighting in the cabin, so that would have been nice. You can tell this vehicle's age by looking at the interior, but you know what? The interior is not necessarily what people buy an STI for. They buy it for driving, especially if you're gonna buy this one, you're gonna buy it for the exclusivity factor. Now, one of the beauties about the WRX STI is the fact that it has a relatively usable back seat. Getting back here, Subaru says you get around 35.4 inches of legroom, which is practically matching that of something like the Civic Type R and the Volkswagen Golf R. You can see the materials in the back seat are actually soft touch, just like the front. You have more of that suede. You have two map pockets over here. No rear seat air vents, but there are cup holders over here, which is good because there isn't any center armrest here, which would have been nice, but you can see also the seats are the same material that you get from the front. They're that suede with the white and the contrasting stitching. Overall, the back seat is definitely usable, but it kind of reminds you again that this is a rally car and not necessarily a family car or luxury car. So I have definitely been waiting quite some time to drive the hottest and rarest and most powerful production STI ever. We've been begging Subaru to give us more power to the STI line for years now. I mean, they soldiered on with 300 horsepower for so many years. In fact, even 15 years later, 341 horsepower is a nice improvement, but it shows you that Subaru could honestly progress further. I would love to see the next generation WRX STI with 400 horsepower, but of course, that's just me being a typical journalist where I'm like, I want more, I want more. Now, going down this road here, the STI looks like a track or a street legal race car, and it certainly rides like a street legal race car. Out of all of the hot hatches, sport compacts, like the Type R, I'm talking about the Veloster and the Golf R, this is the harshest that I've felt. The Focus RS was pretty close to this. Actually, the Focus may be slightly harsher, but you can't buy that anymore in America, so that one has been crossed off the list. I like how this car has basically Focus RS power. I mean, that car had 350 horsepower. This has 341, 330 foot-pounds of torque. This STI definitely has a firm ride, but I'm kind of okay with it because this car in general is just so, you know, cool. It has like a cool factor that the Civic Type R, you know, gives you when you're driving that vehicle and such. So this definitely feels like a special STI. Now I'm going to go over to the Sport Sharp setting here, and we're going to turn the traction control, just the traction control, we're going to turn that off. And let's just try a quick little launch with this baby and see what we can get out of it. Ooh, a little harsh. I'll have to try another launch because I really screwed that one up, but oh my God. That's the beauty about all-wheel drive. You try to do this in a Civic Type R and you're just gonna be spinning out, burning out the front tires, and this is why you want all-wheel drive. But if you own this car, I wouldn't recommend doing a 4,000 clutch dump, but that's kind of the way you're supposed to launch these Subarus with all-wheel drive, but it does feel appropriately fast. Subaru says this car will get to 60 in under 5 seconds. It feels like a 4.5 second car for me if you can get the launch right. Oh, you know what? This EJ25 motor is such an old dog, but man, does it still have a lot of character. I mean, it's got that traditional Subaru rumble that we all know and love. The engine sends a lot of vibration back through the shifter, through the pedals, through the steering wheel. It's a very visceral feel that most of you enthusiasts, traditionalists are gonna love. Oh, and honestly, there's still turbo lag in this thing. When you are revving this car below 4 grand, there isn't really much going on, but above 4 grand, you feel a nice surge of power. And this thing feels as quick, it pulls as hard as the last Civic Type R that I drove. It feels really good. This is such a nice driving car still. Lag, there's the power. I feel like the revs on this car also end very abruptly. 6,700 Redline. I wish it actually kept pulling to maybe like 7,200 RPM. It could pull a little harder. You can even hear the turbo blow-off valve noise, and that's a stock noise. I love that about this car. I think it's one of the coolest things about this car for sure. All right, let's try another launch over here. Let's see if I can get it right this time. A little better. Ooh. This thing is still an absolute riot. It definitely feels like a 4.8 second car to 60. This should smoke a Civic Type R, because the thing about the Type R is it cannot put the power down the way this all-wheel drive car can, and you really feel the difference in the suspension tuning and the fatter tires this car gives you. It's got a 2-inch wider width versus the standard STI. You've got 265 width tires. The wheels themselves are fatter. Subaru says you'll be able to do 1G on the skid pad for this car, and it feels like that. The steering is extremely sharp, extremely direct, super quick also, has zero body lean whatsoever. And like attacking corners in it, oh my God. This thing just grips the road like nobody's business. I would love to see what this thing can do on a track. I mean, again, they designed the STI S209 to be a track monster, and it definitely feels that way. Oh, we get stuck behind a slow Corolla. Why? Oh my God. Fun's over. Now, because we're stuck behind this slow Corolla, let's try out the car in just its intelligent mode. I honestly don't feel much of a difference in the ride quality or the feel of this car between the modes. The steering does get slightly lighter. The exhaust noise stays mostly the same. What disappoints me the most about the S209 is Subaru put a new exhaust system on this car. It's a unique exhaust. It has 17% less back pressure, but it doesn't sound all that loud. I want more noise. There's that characteristic Subaru rumble, but it doesn't have the shrill, the thrills, the excitement that I expected an S209 to have. It just kind of sounds like a slightly louder STI, a slightly louder WRX, but it's just like the Type R. The noise is very disappointing. So I imagine a lot of enthusiasts are probably going to swap out that exhaust. Subaru really should have added something with the crackles and the pops. I mean, I know some of you don't like the crackles and pops, but let's face it, that's kind of what sells in today's day and age of performance cars. We want that really exciting pop, that noise that you get from some of the competition. A little understeer there, but the traction control is mostly just intervening, but it feels like this car still plows a little bit. This car definitely doesn't have the drift mode capability that a Focus RS has, which is kind of a shame. I wish Subaru had included something like that for this car. It's got that fancy, diff controller. A little soft, but oh, you feel it once that turbo kicks in. What a riot. Oh. Oh my God, this car still puts a huge smile on my face, even though it is old. It feels old, but wow, it's effective. I think this could be better than the Type R for me. I genuinely enjoy it more because of the all-wheel drive grip that I wish Honda would consider adding to the Type R. The visibility in here is typical. It's, you know, thin A-pillars, good view. Subarus typically have good visibility. The view out of the back, also that wing, I expected it to take up more of my, you know, space there, but it actually is high enough to where you can see the car that's behind you. If you need to actually see what's behind you. I wish that Subaru included blind spot with rear cross traffic alert. I mean, I know this is a track car, but you know, the blind spot monitoring is a feature that I think a lot of people enjoy having. I understand why there's no eyesight in this car. I'm okay with that, but the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic would have definitely been a nice addition. The ride in this car also, when you're attacking the twisties and having a good time, you don't really notice the firmness of it. It's really when you start putting passengers in it, then you notice the firmness of it. It is not as loud as it could be in terms of the exhaust. The engine has that rumble. Road noise is a little higher because of these bigger wheels and tires. The seats also, again, I think they could be a little bit more aggressively bolstered, but this is one seriously wonderful driving car still. The STI is still going to put a huge smile on your face, and even though it is due for a replacement soon, I would not fault you for buying the current generation. She is old, but she is effective.
All right, do you want to do a quick intro on your side, and then you can say when to go?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So one question I really wanted to know, is the S209 faster than a Civic Type R? Specifically that one that belongs to my camera guy. Let's find out. Wow. Okay, I'm pulling off there. I don't want the camera to fly off. Well, that's kind of a disappointment. I wasn't expecting that. You were in second, right?
No, yeah, I was in second. Let's do it one more time.
Yeah, I was in second too. I was like, I told you that the turbo lag on this car is bad.
I took off a little sooner than you, so it wasn't fair. Let's do it one more time. Quick line up before the fuckers come up. And throttle on 3.
Okay, yeah. Let me go to second.
So second gear. So
hold on.
1, 2, throttle on 3. You call it again.
Yep. 1, 2, 3. Wow, you're pulling ahead. Look at that. I'm stopping at well, there you go. You pulled ahead. You pulled ahead past 80. That Type R is fast. Holy
Yeah, you got the jump on me that time.
But you caught up.
That time. I didn't get it.
But you caught up. That's insane. Okay. So let's just keep going down a little. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Yes. Turbo lag.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely have me from a dig. Like, there's no way I can keep up with that 4-wheel drive, but we'll see.
Yeah. Man, I cannot believe that I lost at the higher end. Or like, I got the jump on you and you still reeled me back in. Ew, that Camry. Ew. He's feeling a little insecure. He's like, no, it's not fair.
Yes, he is.
Really? Oh, watch the BMW. Oh. Very lame. All right, I think that's enough. We probably got enough. You proved that the Type R is still faster. But yours is tuned, though. Yours is tuned.
It is tuned. It is tuned, yes. Stock for stock would be interesting. Stock for stock would be interesting.
Yeah, I need pieces.
I'm following you. What am I doing?
You can go ahead and head home. I will turn these cameras off. So even though this generation of the STI is due for a replacement in the next year or so, after spending the week driving the hottest and most rare version, of the STI, I'm pretty happy to report that there's still a lot to like about this car. It will put a huge smile on your face from its old school mechanical feel that you get. I mean, especially with the engine, it's got more power this year, finally, on this version. It has a significant amount of turbo lag, which I actually find to be very comical. And when you guys drive this thing, it has a lot of mechanical feel and grip from the shifter, from the steering, from the way the engine vibrates throughout the car. It's just a very visceral feel that a lot of you old school enthusiasts are really going to appreciate. Now, of course, this car isn't exactly perfect. I think Subaru did a really great job with the styling on the outside. They've made some great changes, but the interior, I think they could have done more. The biggest disappointment for me is the lack of the Harman Kardon sound that you get in the STI limited models. The bass 6-speaker stereo in here just sounds awful, although Subaru may just tell you, listen to the exhaust system, which for me was still a little bit too quiet for my taste. I think Subaru could have made the exhaust a little bit louder, but everything else about the car I love. And you're also going to love the fact that if you guys decide to purchase one of these, you're going to be in a select group of enthusiasts because Subaru is only building 209 of them specifically for the US market. So this is going to become a rare collector's kind of car. And if you're a huge Subaru loyalist, you better pick one of these up quickly when it goes on sale next month. So now it's time to give the Subaru WRX STI S209 an RPM rating, starting with the R for real world uses. Now in this segment of vehicle, the WRX STI's main competitors are hot hatches, so I'm going to dock this 1 point and give it a 6 out of 10 for real world uses just because this is a sedan. It's still a relatively practical car. Moving on to the E for efficiency. This thing is rated at 1521. That's just awful MPG for something this small. In my weeks for the testing, I got about 18, so I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10 points for the efficiency score. Moving on to the D for desirability. This is going to be a rare car. Only 209 of them are going to be built, so I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 points for desirability. Moving on to the L for longevity. The engine in this car has been in production for 15 years. It has a 6-speed manual transmission. Subarus are known for great build quality. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 points as well for longevity. Moving on to the I for innovation. This car has quite a few tricks up its sleeve, from its all-wheel drive system with the 2 limited slip diffs to the center diff where you can adjust how much torque you want appropriating to the certain wheels, to the adjustable or to the functional wing that you get that adds downforce. I'm going to give this car a 7 out of 10 points for innovation. I would give it more points if the interior simply had more tech, like blind spot monitoring, but it is absent on the S209 version.Moving on to the N for need for speed. This is a fast car. Subaru says you'll get to 60 in around just under 5 seconds. I believe it's quicker. I'd say it's more around 4.5 seconds. I'll give this a 9 out of 10 points for need for speed because this is probably one of the quickest entries in the segment now that the Focus RS is no longer with us. Now moving on to the final E for expense. This is an expensive car, and that's the biggest problem with the S209 because it's rare, it's limited production. You're gonna pay $64,880 for this thing, and there are no options to add. You basically just pick your color. That makes it about $26,000 more expensive than a regular STI. About 15 grand more than the old Subaru WRX STI Type RA, which didn't have any more power. That was around 50 grand. Honestly, I think Subaru has overpriced it. I think I would pay 50 grand for this. Keep in mind that $65,000 price tag is before you add the dealer markups, and who knows what that's gonna be when this car goes on sale next month. Add it all up and the total score is around 49 out of 70 points, which is slightly lower than what I rated the Honda Civic Type R. And that's because the efficiency and the expense scores have hurt this car a little bit, but I gave this a much higher score for desirability and for speed because this is a faster car than the Civic Type R. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2019 Subaru WRX STI S209. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and of course, as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.